So this spring and summer for us at Maven BI has been upgrade season. We have led or participated now in 4 upgrades from 4.x to 4.3. And so what I started doing was started kind of taking an informal survey of our results. And every upgrade was successful, everything's running, all that good stuff, but that's not what I was getting at. I wanted to see from the user base their experience for the UI UX perspective, and from the developer's perspective, their experience with developing, right? And the reason that I kind of wanted to do that was because some of my clients needed a push to get to 4.3, and that's what the presentation mode and a story about it, and we'll get to that. But first, I kind of wanted to take you through some of the things that my clients and the developers that we work with were saying about 4.3, and kind of show you some of the things that they were saying. And it would be really great to have some audience participation here. So for example, if any of you have moved to 4.3, if you could maybe leave a drop in the comments, some of the comments that you've gotten from your user base and developer base. And those of you that are still on 4x, 4.2, 4.1, 4.0, or even before, what's holding us up, right? What's the wait for? I'm just sort of curious, another one of my informal surveys, and I'd love to kind of talk about that. Okay, but before I get started, I do want to do some obligatory advertising. If you ever need some help, you can always go to mavenbigroup.com, see some cool stuff, drop me an email. But most importantly, I want to always pump need for viz. So this allows us to not only compete, but beat the Tableaus and the Power BIs of the world, and also point out that if we don't have the appetite for a trial or a full or partial installation of the product, SAP has been nice enough to partner and supply the Need for Viz freemium, which gives a nice pump to your current existing 4.3 implementation. Okay, so I'm going to start with the user interface and user experience perspective. One of the things that was consistent across the board from the users was the tooltips. They love the tooltips. And I agree. I happen to think that 4x Classic, that was one of the weakest points. It was often embarrassing, if I'm going to be honest, going through and hovering over our data points. I just think this is a great new feature, and I'm glad they finally put it in. Chart animations is another thing that our clients absolutely love. And so where you can put that in, oh, not there, is it in our edit homepage? No, my bad. Actually, it's even easier than that. It's in, my fault. It's over here in our section right here. Document options, that's right. You can put chart animations, yes or no. I found that a lot of my user base, especially the management types that love to present their dashboards as a presentation, they really, really love the chart animations. And again, they're so easy to click on and off. There's nothing special that you have to do. And as you navigate from page to page, or you click your element links, you'll see the chart animation appear. They also love the intuitive tab switching. It was actually something that I was nervous about moving to 4.3 for the client, the customer base, because people are very used to having their tabs right down here, right? So I was kind of worried that putting it up here would sort of confuse people. But that was one of the things that the user base, the consumer base, pointed out immediately, is that they actually find that to be a lot more intuitive than how it used to be. And another thing that they pointed out, again, that surprised me, was they actually liked this drop-down feature where their documents that they're currently looking at and being held are up here. And so it kind of, again, it keeps things from, I guess, being so busy And I think that might have bothered a lot of people in 4.x Classic. Another thing that they really loved in reading mode when they're on the tabular sections is to be able to freeze their headers. That was a big one. You could do this in 4x, but it just wasn't always so obvious. And so being able to grab a header, now this doesn't have a header because of how I did the folding, but being able to just click that button, I've heard from numerous clients, this is a great thing. An obvious one that I didn't mention yet is no Java applet. That's something that drove everybody crazy before for 2 days. That's huge. This one, we've been getting a lot of great reviews on the folding and unfolding. And again, this is something that I thought was a major flaw in 4.x Classic, just between us here. It was often a showstopper sometimes for the way some of my financial partners wanted to do their reporting. And it sort of forced us either into another tool. You can see the totals wrote up here because I folded it up. It would either force us into another tool or force us into throwing things into Excel. And not that that's a problem, but there's just so much that a good power user can do within this tool that something as goofy as folding and unfolding and in your breaks was a showstopper. So I'm glad that that's in. And again, it's so intuitive. The user has control of this. They click it on and they click it off. And there's not a lot of goofiness that they have to do because the developer is going to essentially control the folding and unfolding from a break perspective in their back end. In the analyze section, we've gotten a lot of great feedback from. It's very easy to show your filter bar and collapse it. Again, for that kind of space, a lot of people felt very claustrophobic in the old system. What I'm finding out after talking to everybody, they feel a lot more free and they feel like they have more control over what they're seeing. Again, there's something I was nervous about before we all made the switch to 4.3, but they've gotten a lot of usage out of it. And especially our customers that are using Webi against HANA online views or BW queries. The drill on and off feature has been working really, really well. Another thing that's really universal amongst all the users, right? No matter if we're talking analysts, desktop users, or executives, is the way element linking works. It is much more intuitive to click around, right? Based on having the system sort of tell you what you're doing there. So not only is it going to highlight what we filtered, much like most of the other tools have been doing, but it's also going to let you just remove that filter. And so also I want you all to notice that it put a target on whatever we're filtering and kind of told us at the bottom there what we're filtering. And that's pretty important because once you start developing dashboards that are more complex than what we have here, and you have layers and you have blocks that only filter one block to the side or underneath, it's really nice for the customer base to be able to click, know what they're filtering on, and know what's being filtered. I thought that was a really, really nice touch. And again, the one-click removal of your filters.
So Alan, a question
yeah.
came in. The
Sure.
unfold arrow disappears. Is there something to make it more visible?
Ooh, the unfold error.
Arrow.
That I don't know. That's in the fold and unfold. You know, that's a good question. I'm not actually sure, but yeah, kind of when you're right here, it's very obvious. But once you want to go to this part, yeah. No, that's a good call out, and I'm going to look into that because I wonder if there's some sort of customization that we could do, or that's something that we could definitely have Paul send up to SAP for us.
Yeah,
maybe an option. But yeah, it's a good call out. Very good call out. Another thing that the user base really liked is this was missing for so long, is responsive design. I don't have a client iPad on me, but I've had to go to the sites and test these out on their iPads, and these things look beautiful on the iPad. They scale perfectly and they're just as interactive. And to be able to take your dashboards mobile without having to redo a lot of your work is an extreme time saver. And again, they love it. I have a client that basically walks around his office. He's got an iPad and he can just go and switch to our different dashboards and reports. And it's nice, something that they've always been missing. And, you know, they actually flirted with Power BI because they at the time had a much better mobile application. And he felt like, I can't be mobile, but now he really feels like he can be mobile. And that's a big thing. I think another thing that is a pretty big deal that I was again surprised about is in settings here, you have the ability to edit the appearance of your application. So there's a lot of people that like to work all in white, right? They don't like the blues. There's a lot of people that, me for instance, I like to work in darker colors or contrast. And honestly, I kind of like to go back and forth. So it's nice that you have some built-in themes here. And one thing that we're going to start looking at Maven, and we haven't quite done this yet, is the ability to add some more custom themes that come directly from us that maybe reflect a client's colors. So we don't know if that can be done, but I could imagine that's something that's going to be coming in the future from SAP. But again, the point that I'm making is it's easy and intuitive. A user can come in here and just go and pick his own theme, and it's just one click. But I'm going to go back to, let's do
the question came in about going back to the responsive. You talked about responsive design, but the question was, does this resize appropriate to the device, unlike in Tableau? I think you're talking about design rather than responsive application itself, because on a phone it's not going to.
Not on a phone, no, on a tablet. So on your Surface, on your iPad, and I know that doesn't sound like, oh, that's not all that exciting, but it kind of is if you were in 4.2 days and you had to use mobile BI. It was a pain. The ability to be able to have this be near perfect on your iPad or your Surface or anything like that has been a very big difference maker. Now, having said that, I have not tried this on my iPhone. I've had no reason to. But I do imagine that one of these dashboards and putting your phone vertically or horizontally would probably perform pretty well. These phones are pretty large. But no, when I was talking about, I was more talking about larger screens on your desktop, smaller screens on your laptop, and smaller screens on the tablet. It performs very, very well. So you can kind of design a dashboard on a larger desktop, and then when a user goes and they consume it on a laptop or a tablet, it will essentially resize to the best of its ability. It's, you know, it's limited, just like all things are, right? If we have any Lumira developers or anything like that, right, we're going to have people that understand that as you shrink and shrink and shrink, things get less and less responsive, right? It's hard to kind of then resituate things into a vertical that you have to do for mobile. But good question.
Yeah, let's just clarify what we mean by responsive design is designed for the device that it's going to be displayed on.
Right.
So if you do want to create a Webi output for a phone, then you would design the Webi report accordingly so it will look good on the phone itself. That's what we mean by responsive design. There's a lot of confusion out there sometimes because some applications, when you program, say in React.js, for example, you know, the program itself is responsive, and so it will try to move things around and juggle them to make them fit better and look better on a phone screen. That's responsive. That's responsive execution. That's not what Webi does. Webi is going to keep things the same as you design them.
Right. Shrink, expand. So yeah, I probably don't help with the confusion out in the community with that. but yeah, that's been a big thing. And another couple small things. Again, and these are things that I didn't really realize. One of my users was commenting to me, I really like how I can just right click on any one of these charts in reading mode and I can leave a comment. So obviously you have to have your commentary service on, but again, it's very intuitive. Right click, boom, there it is. You click, leave a comment, take away the value access. And you can save it for your next user to come see it. And then you know that you have a comment because you have that little square there. And then there I am in BI, guys, take away the value access. A nice little note, either for your next developer that you're collaborating with, or a nice little note to leave for another user to see if you're collaborating from an analysis perspective. And finally, I've gotten a lot of comments that the input controls are a lot improved, right? They look better, they feel nicer, they're easier to design, they're easier to edit. The calendars look better. So I've gotten a lot of unexpected commentary on the input controls. And a lot of people, again, this is another thing I was nervous about. I know a lot of people were asking for input controls to not always be on the side, but a lot of people are used to that. They've been using input controls like that for years and years and years. This is a, you know, massively proliferated tool. You know, so to just take something for the user on the side and just throw it to the top, I have to bare my soul here. I was very nervous about that. And I've had one person, who I don't really count because he's my older brother, complain about that. Everybody else has really enjoyed them being at the top. They've enjoyed how easy it is to show them and hide them, and how easy it is to use them, and how easy it is to see what linked analysis or element links that you have throughout. So from my perspective, the UI and UX has been vastly improved, and that for me is enough to make the switch beyond the SAP roadmaps and all the other goodies that you get. The ability to build your user base with something more modern, more intuitive, that just does more on the surface than in classic and is less claustrophobic, is a huge reason to move. Before
a couple more questions came in. So can dashboards like this be integrated with Microsoft SharePoint or some other kind of portal?
I mean, I would assume yes, you know, via an opendoc link, or you know, I know in Need for Viz, we can actually rip out the HTML and the JavaScript and put those Need for Viz visuals on another portal, but that might be a Paul question. So Paul, if you know a better answer, please.
Yeah, Webi is supported on SharePoint.
Cool.
And you can also, because it's HTML5 output with 4.3, you can support it easily on other portals as well. So that's something that customers are doing today in 4.2. So that's not that you can definitely have output, Webi output on SharePoint. Next question that came in is, can you search within an input control, i.e. find Eliquis in drug name?
Sure, let's see. Yep, I thought you could. So yeah, that's nice. And it's not case sensitive. So I just looked up the DHCP booklet, just put DH, boom, right there. And again, these are even some things that I didn't know as a self-described SAP and Webi expert, all these kind of little goodies that they put in for our users. I was very nervous before the spring, and coming out, we just finished our last implementation first week of August, and I'm feeling great.
Right.
Cool. So I did want to go over some things.
Okay, so there's a couple more as well.
No, please.
Since 4.2, we can get to the Fiori interface. How close is that to the native 4.3 that you're showing? Specifically wonder about building, editing reports in what I'm looking at. The report design interface looks very much what we have now. This seems confusing to have the reading interface updated, but not the design interface.
Okay.
So, yeah. So
ahead,
I mean, yeah, the 4.2 Fiori is really just the kind of launchpad piece that was a stepping stone to introduce users into the world of what the Fiori HTML5 interface would look like. But you're absolutely correct. It did not in any shape or form make any changes to the actual Webi development tool itself. So that's the huge difference in 4.3, that Webi itself was rewritten in HTML5. And so therefore, we can truly say that Webi 4.3 for a developer, anybody who builds reports, is dramatically different to 4.2. Yes. And what you had at 4.2 was just, as I said, the launchpad piece. Right. Did you want to add to that at all, Alan?
Yes, I will add. You're gonna get better performance out of your 4.3 front end than your 4.2 intelligence viewer. The compiler is faster, and the compiler is actually 5% faster from 4.3 SP1 to 4.3 SP2. So that there were some complaints that the intelligence viewer was a tad bit clunky. That is for the most part eliminated in 4.3 SP2. And again, there's just some more of these little goodies that are there. And as Paul mentioned, there's the unified build that are all in the 4.3 design. So, and I've also found that most of my client base, when they are on 4.2, still chose to consume in classic mode rather than consume in intelligence viewer.
Okay, and just a clarification, Michael, who had asked that question about publications in SharePoint, INFOBURST, of course, does it. You have to be careful if you are using SharePoint 365 in the cloud, because that's going to be different. So you can publish to SharePoint on premise with Web Intelligence, but if you really want to go to SharePoint 365 cloud, you might want to look at tools like InfoBurst for doing that automatically. One other point that came in, Alan, for you is that does it have a date range slider for input control still in 4.3?
Yes, it does. I don't have on this one any calendar pickers or date control sliders, but it does. It has any input control that you used before is there, right? They didn't take anything, nothing was taken away from us, right? There was only things that were given to us. And things that just look better and are more intuitive for the user to use. And even when they go and select their date, they have a nice modern looking calendar that's very easy to go between fast date ranges. It's much improved.
Great, carry on, thanks.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm getting a little short on time because I do want to show the presentation mode, which was the point of this presentation. I just stole everybody's time here. But I did want to tell you some of the universal things that our developers loved. And this one was just across the board. Got great reviews. the way the intuitiveness with building your formulas is just so improved. It has that sort of IntelliSense that Microsoft has and that Lumira has. If we have people that are developing in other programs. So if I just want to make a formula, I just typed in P. I can find my item and it times by the net value. I type N, boom, it's done. And so just by typing a few letters, we can have that list all right there. And it just makes your variables easier and more intuitive to write. Having everything right there. This is a much better section, and the ability to collapse and expand it and give ourselves more space, right? So for those of us that know our functions pretty well and just want to grab them pretty easily, right? We can have this whole space to write. Those of us that need some help can expand this for all the help that they need. And again, because they have the ability to have that IntelliSense, it's just a vastly improved developer's experience. People also really loved the manage filter bar. They found it a very easy way to go through and see on a nice little dialog box what they have, and to move them around and to add. So that was a nice little goodie for the developer. Another goodie for the developer that everybody tended to like, and this actually got some resistance at first, was the build on the far right side. I think that took a little bit to get used to, but once people started using it, they saw how much more of a natural flow it had to what we were doing, right? To having your turn intos right here, your data assignments right here, your ability to display the filter panel, one-click sort, one-click rank, everything in here instead of being up there and having to right click. It just kept people a little bit more organized, and once they got used to it, they were able to bang through development a lot quicker. Another thing people really liked was clicking on these little 3 dots here and being able to edit for a group or apply a custom order. And this comes in really handy when you're trying to create some very high-end dashboards or interactive reports or scorecards. So those things were pretty big for our developer base. Okay, so let's get to my short anecdote. So like I said, sometimes our clients needed a push for us to move them to 4.3. And I really want everybody to be moving on the roadmap and to have all the necessary things at their disposal to do everything that they want to do. And now that where all the development and new features are in 4.3, I feel like, my teams are missing the boat, right? If they're not moving along, if they're not going to 4.3, there are things that they want to do that they're missing. And so specifically, we had a client that in a mine, and they're a mining operation, they have their mining sites, and at their centers, they have these dashboards that sit on big screens 24/7. And so they needed to be auto refreshed. Well, luckily in 4.2 Classic, we can do that. It's just, it doesn't look good. And you have to keep one of those side panels open. So we always had this goofy little sliver here. And then because we started to release more dashboards, then they wanted to be able to have the dashboards switch tabs. Well, you can't do that in 4.2. And so what we had to do is we had to write them a custom program in Python. And I'm not a Python developer, but we ended up writing this for them, right? And I'll show you guys the program, and then I'll show you how Webi 4.3 easily takes care of this. So here is, once you run and execute that Python code, it can say how many tabs should I switch through. So this is what they'd have, this is what I'd have to do before I set up one of their 24/7 dashboard operations. Or if they paused and they needed to restart, either I needed to come in their system and do this, or I needed to make sure that someone on site understood this. So how many tabs do we have up? And it's not even the most stable program, again, because I'm not a Python developer. So how many tabs? 3? Cool. How many seconds should I stay in each tab? I don't know, 5 is cool. There you go. Now it's going to give you some instructions. Click on your browser window, switching between 3 tabs for 5 seconds each. So you click here, and let's see if it works. There we go. Cool. So it switches it automatically. Now, again, that's nice. It's nice that I was able to do that for them, right? But again, it's not a great solution. It's clunky. It requires Python. It requires know-how, right? And you got to click up in that left-hand corner to get it done. Cool. The program went away. Right now, and let's see how 4.3 takes care of this. Oh, display. What is display? Here's our 3 dots. More. Well, that's a hint, right? We don't need to worry about this. We don't need to worry about this. Let's go to presentation mode. Let's see what that can do for us. Now we're going to get some options. I'm not going to click automatic refresh on this one because I'm using our demo server. So we don't have the data connected to anything live. But this gives the user the ability to set a refresh. And this refresh will happen in the background. So let's say you refresh it every 5 minutes and your dashboard takes 4 minutes to turn over. It's not going to stop, spin on you, and then rock your dashboard for a single minute. These things are happening in the background. It's going to happen in the background. No one's going to know. Your screen will flick for just a second, and boom, your stuff is updated, right? For this, I'm not gonna go ahead and do that. But these are some nice options. I'm going to go here. I'm going to switch 4 tabs. I'm going to set it for 5 seconds. I'm going to display this in full screen. I don't have to display it in full screen. I can leave some of this up there. I can give them a refresh bar. I don't really want to, so I'm not going to click that. And here we can decide which reports or dashboards we're going to put for the presentation mode. So again, to get this done before, I had to come up with a Python program. I had to give it to them. We had to implement it. We had to set up our opendoc links. We had to go to 4.2, make sure we had the service on that would allow us to click the extension and enter in when we wanted to refresh. And then we had to do those goofy instructions that I gave them in order to get this done. When I showed him, this is what I can do in 4.3, he was like, great, I'm so tired of your program. And so just showed him, hey, you come in, here are options. It's basically my Python program in Webi, just press OK. And of course we had, I don't know why this got stuck, probably because I had it up so long. Anyway.
That's great, Alan. A couple of quick questions that came in. In your experience, how long did it take to socialize 4.3 from 4.2? And we're talking here about your main developers as well as end users.
To be honest, I actually thought that I was going to have more issues with the end users than I did the developers, but it didn't take long for either one. So our strategy was we were able to use someone I was very close to as a guinea pig, and we decided to just give them an email communication, show the new features, and then give them a short video up on their portal of what they're going to expect, and then tell them the date that this is all happening, and boom, it just happened. And the user base took to it very quickly. The developer base, I'd say, took about a sprint, every single one of them, to fully not only embrace, because most people embraced it, they wanted to do this, but there was some nervousness because everybody was used to how they were doing things. And there was maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks max of people kind of, you know, maybe starting from here and kind of being slightly frustrated because, you know, we all have muscle memory with what we do in Webi and things of that nature. It took maybe like a few days to break that down. And then as they started seeing the features and as they started getting the positive feedback, pretty much everybody was on board and was fine with it. It was not nearly as much training and communication as I had anticipated, and I think that's because it's intuitive. It really is.
That's great. No, that's awesome. One final thing, you had mentioned BusinessObjects Classic. Were you referring to desktop intelligence, or were you referring to?
Sorry, no, I was no, that's my fault. I was referring to your
client?
no, I was referring to your old style of your 4.0, 4.1, 4.2
Okay.
BI Launchpad.
Okay, excellent. Well, this was really informative. Thank you so much, Alan.
Yeah, sure.
There was a lot of stuff you covered here, and excellent questions as well. So
yeah, thank you, everyone.